Hey Neil, sorry it took me so long to make this video, but I don't do this very often, so thought what I'd do is I'd just play this song for you, Nothing But the Blood, show you how, let you see how I play it up close, and then after I play through it one time, I'll go back and talk about some of the techniques that I use. So here's the song. So that was one verse and a chorus, and then sometimes I played a little bit differently than that. But basically, all I'm doing is I am playing an alternating bass note with my thumb. So I'm going, this is on the A string. I have it, by the way, I have it capoed at the 4th fret, so the song is in E. And I'm playing an alternating bass string with my thumb. And in this case, since I'm playing mostly in the C shape in this case would be an E major chord. I am alternating my thumb on the A string and the D string. So I'm just doing this throughout basically the whole verse. And then sometimes I mess up, or sometimes I have to actually, for whatever reason, play the A string twice in a row, but that's okay, as long as for the most part you're just sort of alternating those. So I can get this little bass line going, and then I can add the other strings in, which is actually the melody. So one thing about that is I really try very hard when I'm playing to keep that bass line going. That's what makes it sound good. If I didn't do that, then it wouldn't have the full sound. But I'm very careful to make sure that I'm playing the bass line on the proper strings for obvious reasons. So I'm playing the C shape and I'm playing the bass line on the A string and the D string, right? But then I switch to that G shape. So this is how I normally play a G: ring finger and my pinky finger. I guess I could play it like this, or I could play it like this or this. But for this song, I play my ring finger on the I guess 5th fret of the low E string, and then my pinky finger on the B string of the same fret. So when I change to that, and that's actually a B, okay, so it's a G shape, but capo 4 is a B. So I'm playing this E chord, and I'm playing the melody line over it. So right here I switch to the G. Okay, so when I switch to that G, I make sure that I play the bass note on that G. And my alternating string then becomes, even for just a brief moment, it becomes the D string. So I'm either alternating between the A and the D string, or the G and D string. And sometimes that can be tricky because you might want to go like the E and the A string, but in this case it wouldn't sound right. I suppose I could do that as long as I have my middle finger on on the 4th fret there. I said 4th. I counted them wrong. I'm sorry. To play this B, that's actually my ring fingers on the 7th fret. It's capo 4. My middle finger then would be on the A string of the 6th fret, but I actually skip it when I play it. I don't even play that. I just keep my ring finger off, and I'm doing this. It's just the bass notes of the low E, which I have on the 7th string, and the D string, the open D string, in this case capo 4. So, as long as you can keep the bass notes going, just like this, or that. And if I switch back, I just make sure that I'm on the A string, now I'm on the E string. But I always stay on that D string no matter what for this song. And that's real typical. So if you're playing in a G and C shape, that's a real typical pattern to play. So the way I do the melody line is really by ear, but I have to practice it, of course. I don't just play it cold. Sometimes I try to do things off the cuff, and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. I kind of know where certain sounds are, especially and I couldn't tell you the names of the notes usually, but I can sort of hear what it should sound like in my head, because I, played this way for so long in this style. You start sort of being able to predict. But in this case, what I did was I just picked out the melody. So the melody would be okay. So that is index finger. So if you're playing a C, your index finger is going to be on the B string on that 1st fret. That's what I'm plucking. Of course, I got my bass line going. And then here it comes. All right, so that next note is I'm hammering on with my pinky on the same fret that my index finger's on, so I guess the 3rd fret up from the capo. And then I'm playing the open E string, the open high E string. Okay, so. Then I play my pinky on the high E string on the same fret, and then back open. And there's that G shape, okay? And then I just play that over and over again. So essentially what I did is I picked that melody out, this. Times if you can get a little I guess a wobble on the string, it makes it resonate better and sounds good. So I picked that melody out, and then I sort of it's a combination of memorizing and also kind of hearing it with your ear for me. Now, some people are just really good at memorizing, but I have a tendency to kind of forget because everything kind of runs together in my head. But what I do is, I practice and I try to listen real closely, and so I know that this sound is going to be made on this fret and this string, and that's just something that comes with time. So, memorization works. I know you asked for a tab, and I've never used tabs, so I don't really. My brain doesn't work that way, I suppose. And so I don't really think I could probably do a tab very well. But I'll move on to the chorus, and then I'll wrap it up. So I play through the verse a couple times, as many times as you want, and you can play it a little differently. You can always mix in a minor chord and an F chord in there, but I usually save those for the chorus. They can work in the verse as well, but here's the chorus. So the chorus would be same concept. I'm keeping the bass line going, but now I have a different melody, right? So it's the chorus melody. So it starts on the 3rd fret of the high E string. All right, that's a kind of a tricky deal right there. I suppose it doesn't have to be that tricky. Well, what it is since the melody has such a short little half note there, what I do is high E string, off, then I go to the B string on the same fret, the 3rd fret, but I kind of hammer off. So it's one pluck, but I'm pulling my pinky off, and then my index finger is making the note. And you'll probably, if you go back and watch, you'll probably see my index finger come up too. I have a tendency, it's just a habit for me to lift my index finger when I know that a hammer-on is coming, or a hammer off. Now I don't have to do that. I'd be a lot more efficient if I kept it in place. But it's essentially a pluck when it's there and then removing it. And that really sounds pretty. Like you can pull it off, and you'll notice that sometimes I play it kind of a straight way to play it, and then sometimes you can embellish it. And all that is, the difference between those two is, in the first instance, I'm just playing these 2 low strings and picking out just the melody. The others, I'm getting that little picking pattern going, and I can't remember what it's called. It's got a name to it. It's a real common picking pattern, but essentially I'm using my middle finger and my ring finger, and I'm just doing just like I'm doing with my thumb. See, in my thumb I'm keeping the bass note going, and with these other fingers I'm picking that same pattern. I hope that's helpful. To me, again, tabs don't work very well, so I'm more of a visual learner, so I hope that you can see it and replicate it. But then it's just a matter of knowing where the melody is. And see, that was a little hammer on. So I actually pluck it before I depress the string, okay? And here comes that G shape. Now lift up my ring finger to pluck that string. So that's on the E string. Now I go to an A minor shape. This is the first time I use this. So here's an A minor chord, right? You know, A minor chord, and all I do is I lift my ring finger, and I put my pinky on the E string on the 3rd fret. All right, so it's the same kind of pattern that I play with that G. All right, now I go to an F chord. Now this is a tricky chord to play, because an F shape will look like this, where you kind of bar the 1st fret and you play that E shape right behind it. But especially for finger picking, I play my F chords and any other sort of bar chords by wrapping my thumb around the top of you can see my left thumb there, wrapping my thumb around the top of the neck. All right, so when I play that F, it's real important to play that bass note. So if you can't get that wraparound, because I know some people don't play that style, then if you do this, if you use your index finger, it will still work. It just makes it a little bit more difficult to hit the right notes with your other fingers. So I found that doing the wraparound with my thumb gives me a lot more freedom with my other fingers to sort of move around and play the melody. All right, so one more time on the chorus, and then we'll wrap it up. messed up on that F chord. It's actually not an F, it's an A, but it's an F shape in my brain, so I think of it as an F. But I was supposed to pluck the high E string and the low E string at the same time, and I missed it. Now, that causes a little bit of a problem with the melody, but what I found is if you focus more on the pattern itself and less on the melody, you're more likely to sound good. I tried to play Come Thou Fount this past Sunday for communion. We have communion again. I tried to play Come Thou Fount, and I hadn't practiced it really. I just decided I'd play it, thought that I could do it, and I was messing up on the melody like pretty much the whole time. But it turns out to be a fine sounding song because I'm just playing chords and I'm playing this picking pattern, right? So I could just play sort of any. So people might not know what I'm playing. I might just be making that up, right? But as long as I keep the bass note going and I'm hitting the right bass notes, okay, right? Or F. And you can play around with it a little bit, but as long as you're keeping that steady bass pattern going, and then your other fingers are doing, sort of an alternating pattern, it really doesn't matter, what you're playing, as long as you're keeping that pattern going, it will sound nice. Now it might not be the exact melody, but like I said, I do that all the time. So hope this helped. I'm gonna send this video to you, and I'll send a chord sheet. I don't know if the chord sheet will be helpful at all. It's just a bunch of E's and A's and a couple of B's. But anyway, you'll get to see what we're looking at. And if you have anything else you'd like to see, let me know. Thanks, bye.